Hi everybody, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to Just Add Ginger and thank you so much for clicking on this video. A few things before we start. If you are triggered by things related to health, if you are of a sensitive nature, if you are pregnant and you don't want to hear this, I'm sure by the title you will have guessed what this video is about, then I totally understand. Click off this video now and go and watch something that will make you feel lovely and happy and positive, because I'm going to be sharing some things that happened to me during pregnancy that aren't great, so I don't want you to feel upset watching anything that I'm talking about. Okay, second, this is a very informal setup for me. You are currently sitting in my tea cupboard. Eric has just gone down for his nap. I for some reason can't get the softbox lighting to stand up properly, and I really wanted to film this video because it's been a long time coming. I did a poll on Twitter and Instagram. It's what people wanted to see. I want to share this experience because I believe that mental health is something that should be talked about openly, so that people who are struggling can get support and feel encouraged to talk to somebody about anything that they're going through. So hopefully this setup isn't going to be too much of a distraction and you'll be able to focus on what I'm saying rather than anything that's going on in the background. So let's go back to 2016. Ryan and I got married in the April, and by the summer we decided that we were ready to have a baby. We didn't want to put a label on us trying. We wanted to kind of enjoy ourselves and just see what happened, but we knew we were ready and we were just waiting to see when it happened and if it happened. The first time that we tried, we got pregnant. So by the July, I was pregnant and we found out in the August. So I still remember peeing on the stick. The first one didn't work. Of course it didn't. So I had to do a second one. And obviously it came back positive, and it was just all the emotions, excitement, nerves, feeling elated, feeling terrified, and feeling incredibly lucky. We found out about 4 or 5 weeks, so very, very early. We told one person at that point because we were absolutely terrified and we just needed somebody to turn to who knew what they were talking about. So yeah, for the next couple of weeks everything was hush hush. We did have to tell both our sets of parents early. We were going away to Belgium with my parents. I think I was going to be about 6 weeks, but it would have been really telling if we'd have gone and I wasn't drinking beer, because I do appreciate a good beer, and obviously Belgium is renowned for their beers. So we told my parents, we told Ryan's parents, and you know, as time went on we told everybody else. So I was very lucky in the sense that I didn't suffer from any morning sickness throughout the entirety of my pregnancy. I got nauseous twice and it was very mild. The rest of the time I was fine, which I know I should be so grateful for, and I am. But it didn't actually make me feel very pregnant, because I had a very Hollywoodified view of pregnancy in my head, and I had visions of me running to the toilet every 5 seconds. So although I knew I was pregnant, I didn't believe I was pregnant, and I think I ended up doing about 4 or 5 extra tests to reassure myself that there was a little baby in there, which of course there was, because Eric is now 9 months old. But yeah, it was just a little bit difficult to believe. So we get to 11 weeks, and I think it was Wednesday night, I went to the loo, you know, as you do, and discovered that I was bleeding. And it wasn't a little bit of blood, it was quite a lot of blood. Obviously I freaked out. I didn't know what was going on. Both Ryan and I were utterly terrified. We got in touch with the women's hospital pretty much straight away, who said to come in the next day, monitor what was going on, and to come in the next day at a certain time. but that was the longest night of my life. I'm a worrier by nature anyway, and I'm not the best dealing with issues relating to health. So yeah, that was terrifying. We went in the next day. I had a very early scan. Thankfully, you know, baby was in there, waving his arms and legs, perfectly happy and contented. So that was a big relief for us. We thought that was it. That was the end of it. Got to 12 weeks, told everybody else who we hadn't told that we were going to have a baby. We did the announcement video that you might have seen on my channel, and I had every intention of doing pregnancy vlogs to track this journey, not just for anybody who watches my videos and my subscribers, but also myself, to look back on, you know, kind of a little bit of a trip down memory lane, you know, to go back to from time to time. But we got to 1 or 2 weeks later, and I found myself back in the early pregnancy assessment unit because I was bleeding again. And this happened 2 or 3 times after that as well. So the girl who was struggling to believe that she was pregnant then had to go through getting assessed to see what was going on, why I was bleeding, why it was happening. Thank goodness everything was okay, but it had become a bit of a running thing. Every time it happened, you know, I kind of took it all in my stride because I had to, and, you know, just like turning to whoever was there and saying, oh, we've got to go back to the assessment unit again, you know, trying to maintain some semblance of having it all together when really inside I was kind of crumbling because I was absolutely terrified each time that something was wrong. So for the first trimester, I didn't enjoy being pregnant at all. I had an anterior placenta, which is perfectly normal. You either have an anterior or a posterior. Anterior means the placenta is at the front of the baby, posterior means it's at the back. So anterior placenta isn't a big issue for, you know, in general. Other people have it, it's not an uncommon thing in the grand scheme of things, but it added fuel to the fire for me because I knew there was a chance I'd feel baby kicking later than if I'd have had a posterior placenta. And I went from not believing I was pregnant because I wasn't experiencing any symptoms to then having to go through many visits to the early pregnancy assessment unit at the hospital to then deal with the fact that I had an anterior placenta. So I kind of felt like I was betraying myself because I just plodded along kind of pretending that everything was fine when really inside I was kind of falling apart because I didn't know what to expect. This was my first pregnancy. Everything seemed to be going wrong, almost like a snowball effect of disasters that I had to go through. The only person who really saw what I was really like was Ryan, because I can't hide anything from me. He's my husband, he's my best friend, he's my confidant. So yeah, he had to bear the burden for worrying about the baby and worrying about me, and I just kind of felt like I was an inconvenience for feeling the way I did. But I wasn't enjoying being pregnant, and it makes me feel really sad to say that, and I'm getting a bit emotional because I know that having a baby and being pregnant is a blessing, and I should have been so grateful and happy, but I really wasn't, because I couldn't experience it in the way that I'd hoped. So we get to the second trimester, and I start to hope that this is the turning point, that, you know, things are on the up, but I'm still completely filled with worry and trepidation because I just don't know what's going to happen. And then I was at one of the scans, I can't remember, it was a long time ago, and I'm trying to recall all these things from memory because I don't have my maternity notes anymore because I've been discharged by the midwives who were looking after me, so I don't have my notes to refer to, but at some point when I had a scan, I was told that I had an amniotic band. Now, I'm not a medical expert, so I can't give an in-depth description of what an amniotic band is, but basically there were implications that there could be complications further down the line, and there may have to be intervention in the form of a C-section, which obviously I wouldn't have got a say in because it's what's best for the baby at the end of the day. So that was the next terrifying thing I had to deal with. And being a parent and a woman who has a disability herself, the thought that there potentially could be something that was going to endanger, not endanger my baby, but just add a little bit of complication to the pregnancy and the delivery. And because if you don't know, my disability occurred after a trauma at birth. That scared me beyond belief. So yeah, that was the next thing we had to deal with. I had to deal with. And there were moments where, you know, I could say, yes, I'm happy being pregnant right this second, you know, feeling baby kick for the first time, Ryan feeling baby kick for the first time, finding out that we were having a little boy, you know, knowing we were the ones to have the first grandson for both sides of the family. This is my parents' first grandchild, and we have 2 nieces on Ryan's side, so finding out Eric was a boy was incredibly exciting. But I was scared to death for every other part of my pregnancy up until, well, we'll get into that. So there was the amniotic band issue. Then I fell up the stairs on New Year's Day. I tripped over my slippers that I was wearing. I fell predominantly onto my knee, so the bump didn't take the brunt of the fall at all. I don't think I really knocked it, to be honest, but I was still scared. And I was very stiff the next couple of days because I fell on my left side, so I couldn't really do anything. But the baby was fine. I could still feel him move. We monitored it just to make sure. And then it gets to the last couple of weeks in January, and I get hand, foot and mouth disease. Now, it's not the thing that, you know, is related to sheep. I don't know. I think if you get it as a child, it's a bit easier to manage. But basically, it was around the time I was 34 weeks, and I got very itchy spots on both sides of both hands. I had it on my face. I thankfully didn't get it in my mouth. I got it on my feet and the soles of my feet, not just the top. And it meant that initially, for the first couple of days, I was in extreme amounts of pain. I basically had to sit with cold compresses everywhere on my hands or my feet, or have my feet and hands in buckets of cold water. I didn't sleep for 2 days because I was waking up in the night to either douse my hands in E45 cream and stick my feet in a bucket. I think I took something. I'm not sure what it was, but it was some kind of pain relief that is okay to take in pregnancy. And there was no danger to the baby at this point, but I had to, put myself into quarantine for 2 weeks because I couldn't be around anybody who had a compromised immune system, because I could have passed it on to them. And I had a midwife appointment in that 2 weeks, so the midwife had to come out to me because if you are in the early stages of pregnancy, getting hand, foot and mouth disease isn't great, and you know, I didn't want to put anybody in the position of having to go through it as well. So that was a very stressful time. Brian had to take a day off work when it got really bad, because I couldn't even walk very far. I couldn't put socks or shoes on. I couldn't really get to the toilet on my own. So he had to stay off work and help me. I'm trying to think what else. I ended up going to after this had happened, I went to the hospital because I hadn't felt Eric move in a good few hours, and I was worried, so I went to go and get monitored. Thankfully, he was fine, but again, incredibly stressful, worrying situation to be in. And then, of course, I had to think about how I was going to give birth to him. Now, I'm a very stubborn, independent person. I always have been. I didn't want to just put myself in for a C-section because it could have been the easier option. I wanted to push him out of myself on my own. So, I don't remember being born, obviously, but having the idea that something went wrong with me and my delivery, thinking about how I was going to deliver Eric, was very, very hard to deal with. And thankfully we saw the consultant midwife at the hospital who helped me put a birth plan together, because in the lead up to thinking about the time when Eric was due, I was doing all I could to relax myself. I was looking into hypnobirthing, I was listening to hypnobirthing affirmations in the hope that during labour I'd be able to put those kind of things into practice, but it didn't end up being like that, but that's a whole different story, other story. So she put that together for me. I did have the idea that I wanted to be in the birthing pool because my whole body gets really relaxed when I'm in the bath, so I thought it might be a bit easier on my left side if I could get in the pool. So I went to go and look at it to make sure that I could actually physically get in the pool. That didn't end up happening either, for another reason, which I won't go into because this video would be deviating too much from what I'm trying to say. But it was a very difficult thing to think about, and then obviously I had to think about physically pushing him out, which everybody experiences differently. Everybody's labour is different. Looking back, I can't remember much of it. It wasn't nice, but the fact that I can't remember what it was like, I don't think it was too bad for me. Obviously it's not the same for everybody. Some people might have better experiences. Some people, unfortunately, might have really not good experiences of labour and delivery, but for me, it wasn't too bad. So, yeah. Basically, I went through the entire 9 months of being pregnant, coping. I wasn't coping. I was living in my own head, disaster to disaster. I was waiting for something to go wrong. I didn't believe everything was going to be okay. I just pretended to a majority of people that I was happy as Larry, enjoying being pregnant, and really there was only moments when I was actually pretty excited because I had so much else to deal with. So it gets to Eric being born, and after he was born, I had diamorphine in labour, so I didn't really understand what had just happened. There's the first photo of me with Eric, which my sister-in-law took, and I'm glad she did, because initially I didn't want any photos straight afterwards. But I just look how I felt. I was just completely like worn out and confused that there was actually a human now that I had to look after. So yeah, trying to come to terms with how I was going to do everything was its own kettle of fish, because obviously there was nobody to show me how to do everything one-handed, because I don't know any other one-handed or parents who look after children one-handed. So there was all that to sort out, and there were various different other things that happened, but it wasn't until about the 12-week point when I knew everything to do with Eric was okay, because you have a lot of like tests and just like recovery time and things like that to go through. So it wasn't until 12 weeks where everything hit me, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I don't think I realised how wound up I was during pregnancy until that point, and it got really bad. Like, I'm a worrier by nature, I've already said that, but this was a whole other level. And I don't like to use the term anxiety lightly. Anxiety is a very serious thing. A lot of people suffer from it in various different capacities. I'm not qualified enough to say that's what I had, but I feel like that's what I had at that point. Anything and everything I could worry about, I did. I worried a lot about people's health, the geopolitical state of the world at the time made me terrified beyond belief, and I just found myself in a spiral of worrying, looking for reassurance. That didn't help, so I was looking for more reassurance, and I used, you're not supposed to Google things, but I looked up a lot of different things I was worried about on the internet. I wouldn't get the answers that I wanted, so I would go from article to article or tweet to tweet or whatever it was, just looking for something, and I couldn't break free. And that it would be rare that I'd go an hour in a day where I wasn't worrying about something. And I just felt like the worst person, because there I was with this gorgeous little boy who just looked up at me for everything. And I felt like the time I had with him, where I could have been playing with him or, you know, just getting to know him better, I was spending trying to make myself feel better. And I just knew something was wrong. I just knew, like, I couldn't go on like this, because I didn't want to be a bad mum. So I had an amazing health visitor at the time. I have a great one now, but my previous health visitor saw me through a lot of things I was going through. And so I spoke to her. I went to my GP, and I put in a call to self-refer to CBT. I didn't know what was going on. I knew I had to stop it. So I had to wait for a little bit before I went to CBT. Sorry guys, the camera just cut out. But what I was saying was I had to wait a little bit before I could go for my CBT sessions. And I didn't think they were going to do anything, but they really, really did. It was reassuring to have somewhere to go, to talk to somebody who would just listen, because as much as I felt like I had people around me who would listen, I also felt incredibly stupid saying what I was worrying about. But being able to go there and talk to somebody completely unbiased and impartial, who wouldn't just sit there and say, oh, don't be silly, because I knew I was being silly, but I couldn't help it. So that was really good. Basically, in a nutshell, what I was going through was something akin to anxiety with traits of OCD. So yeah, not the easiest thing to try and get your head around how to cope with things, but basically that is why I couldn't break out of the cycle of having to seek reassurance from looking into things that made me worry. There are obviously lots of different ways to manage conditions like anxiety, but for me, a lot of it centres around being incredibly self-aware and not pandering to my fears about certain things. So if I get worried about something, I can accept it that I'm worried about something, but I can't do anything to add fuel to the fire. So if I'm in a conversation with somebody and something comes up that makes me worried, I have to either change the topic of conversation or switch off or walk away. If I see something, I read something on the internet, that's it. I just have to stop reading it. I can't do anything else to pander to what I'm worried about. And it's really difficult sometimes because I'm a curious person by nature, so I like finding things out and, you know, learning about things, but I know that that's not the best thing for me to do. So yeah, that in a nutshell is my experience of pregnancy, and obviously the anxiety that came with it. I'm out of the woods in terms of everything I was going through because I know how to deal with things now. I still get moments where I'm worried or concerned, but having everything in place that I can do to help me out of it, I do it, and it makes me feel better. But the whole point of making this video and opening up to everybody is to say that if you're pregnant, or even if you're not pregnant, and you're not feeling yourself, you're struggling with anything that I've mentioned in this video, please talk to somebody. Talk to your midwife, talk to your GP, talk to somebody you're close to, but please talk to somebody. Things like this should be discussed in a place where, you know, you're obviously, I'm opening myself up to judgment and criticism, but that's not the way that it should be. People shouldn't be afraid to say how they're feeling, and issues relating to mental health, they're so important. There's a lot of taboo and stigma, or there has been, about talking about issues relating to mental health, but I've always been somebody who wants to share as much as I can in the hope that anybody watching this who's not feeling like they're coping very well with whatever it is you're going through, whether it's anxiety or stress, worry, anything to do with that side of things, will feel supported, that they're not in this on their own, and hopefully will feel encouraged to seek help and support from somewhere in any capacity that you have access to. So I hope this video has made sense. This is really just sharing my experience and my journey through anxiety and pregnancy, and obviously the aftermath and things that I'm going through right now. I'm not going to say thumbs up this video if you enjoyed it. That's not the point of making it. But leave me a comment if you want to. I'll leave my email address in the description box if you want to get in touch with me, you know, just as somebody to talk to. I'll be there to answer any questions you have relating to this video, or any video requests you have for the future. And if you're not subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button to keep on track with all of my videos. Take care of yourselves, show yourself some self-care today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.